What is up, guys, and welcome back to the Sweat It Out podcast. Today we have a tremendous guest all the way from Los Angeles. She's an actress, producer, and businesswoman. Please help me welcome Maya Stojan. How's it going?
Woo-hoo! It's going well. Thank you. Thank you for having me on your podcast. I'm very excited.
How's it going in the West Coast?
It's going good. I'm actually closer to San Diego than I am to Los Angeles.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, it's actually pretty gloomy today, but you know what? We need it. We need a little bit of not just sunshine all the time. Otherwise, we take it for granted. So
I know the sun can beam pretty hard out there. I was out there not too long ago, and it was hot. It was really hot.
That's something coming from a Miami boy like you.
I know. Well, Miami. The problem with Miami is the humidity.
Yeah,
that's the problem with Miami.
Can never escape that. Cut it with a knife in the summertime.
See that? Exactly. Where are you guys actually?
In Miami.
We're in Miami. You are? Okay.
Yeah. Have you been before?
I have in more of my partying days.
everyone kind of admits that they've been down here with like some trepidation. They're like, oh, I have like.
Yes. Good times.
Yeah, always.
Times, right? And I'm sure there's a lot more to Miami than just partying.
Well,
that's because you live on the beach.
Yeah, true.
I don't live on the beach.
Yeah, true.
So I'll tell you some hidden gems if you ever come down again.
Love it. Yeah, no, and I've done a few art galleries down there that are pretty cool. Like
come down for Basel before?
Sorry?
You came down for Art Basel or?
I no, not for Art Basel, but just like toured around awesome galleries. Yeah. Okay. But I've obviously heard of.
Right. Yeah. Well, if you're trying to avoid partying, don't come for Art Basel.
Yeah.
Less about the art nowadays, a lot more about the party.
That's very, very, very true. So I want to ask you, how are things going for you over there? How are things going for you in your industry? How's that been of a change, especially during these times?
You know, it's interesting, and I'm almost scared to say this, but this has been a really good year for me, and it's tricky because I do know that it's not the same for a lot of people that are in my industry, but I've never had as many movies come out as this year, and I've been working pretty consistently. I just wrapped a movie in Vegas, so I got back late last night. So it's been busy for me, but it's just a weird thing having everyone on set wearing masks and getting tested. Actors are getting tested every 3 days on set.
Oh wow!
So my nose is a little a little stuffy, but. Yeah, I mean, it's been good. It's been really good, and I'm very thankful. But at the same time, I can honestly say I work extremely hard at what I do, and I it's not just handed over to me. It's something that I pride myself in. Just I work really hard, and so.
That's amazing. No, like I always say, you got to go out there and earn your stuff. And I'll tell you one thing, off the bat, we both can agree on this, that, same way like you, we've had probably the best, that we've done with our businesses and starting stuff during this time of COVID. And this isn't obviously taken off.
Oh yeah.
Like
we've said it a few times on the podcast.
And we know some other people as well, and this is not taken away from the people who have gone through hardships and have, dealt with many issues. Sure. I totally get it. But it's like we mentioned a lot, if you're somebody who goes out there and works hard and earns their stuff, and, you have something you really want to work on, and it's going to really test your character and see if you're all about it, all about buckling down and really just making it happen during a tough time. And it's going to show, It's going to show the people who are going to separate themselves, later on. I think in the next 2 to 5 years, you're going to see a lot of people who separated themselves who are going to be reaping the benefits because they took this challenge and they really buckled down to build something.
100%. And I think so much of it is also staying positive and not just, melting down to our surroundings, but really focusing on, what can I change? What can I do in my own personal life? Because we get so stuck in the broader picture of what's going on, but it's really what's in front of you that you can make a difference with. And if you want to help make that change, just be of service with what is in front of you,
That's right.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think a ton of people get overwhelmed, right? When they, think of it from such a grandiose perspective, and instead of thinking about, and we talk about it as coaches with our clients all the time, is like, you got to focus on the small habits that, you practice daily, because those are the things that really, build up and snowball over time if you don't, if you aren't taking the right approach to them. So I'm really
100%.
glad that you brought that up, because in today's age, it's so easy to kind of deflect the blame from yourself for the shortcomings that you're experiencing right now, right? Instead of like looking in the mirror and saying, okay, well, maybe not everything that's happened to me was in my control, but a lot of the things that led to the discomfort or the challenges that we're facing, a lot of that stuff probably was in your control, right? So are you examining that, or are you, just putting up this blanket statement of like, well, it's out of my, like, I have no power over this?
No, I think this time, this year specifically, has been a great year for me to really go deep and take a good look at myself and what I can improve about myself. And I suffer from a lot of anxiety. I have severe OCD. And so just, there's been a lot of triggers in my life that have brought those things that, heightened those emotions and those feelings. And just being able to, for me, it's meditation. I meditate a lot because I just think that it starts with mental health.
100%.
And I've just been able to sort of learn how to self-soothe versus, as you said, like putting the blame on other people, on outside circumstances, and just being able to kind of reflect back on how I can just make those small changes, make those small habits that can, really turn things around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think taking time for yourself and doing things like meditation, right? And there's a multitude of avenues that you can take down that. I like to meditate myself as well. And,
Mm-hmm.
Even just taking that 5 to 10 minutes where like you can, be in solitude and not really pay attention to all the chaotic things that go on throughout everyone's days, I think really is a huge benefit for a lot of people, right? Whether it be like a
100%.
gratitude journal or meditation, or even like going for a 10-minute walk. Like, a lot of the most calming experiences that I've had recently have come from things like that, right? Where I was able to kind of bring myself back to like a normal state where I could think clearly and then make
Right.
decisions based off of that.
So Maya, since we're on this topic now, I would love to ask you, what are some of the tools and what are some of the things you do, especially being a busy businesswoman, producer, actress, alone, especially during these times, you're saying masks and all these regulations, that industry is already hard without all that stuff. So I can imagine everything's doubling, tripling in as far as the stress levels and work with the regulations on. So what are some of the things you do to just, keep yourself calm, keep yourself in the right lane and not get overwhelmed?
For me, over the last now 8 years and a bit, I practice gratitude every single day. And so first thing in the morning, I wake up and I write 10 things that I'm grateful for and why. And it's been incredible just how much it's shifted my brain, and even in challenging situations, I go straight to feeling the emotion first and foremost, because I'm not a robot, I mean, of course, I still cry, I still get angry, I still feel all the feels, but it's just being able to transition quicker into positive thinking and going to a place of appreciation versus going to a place of feeling sorry for yourself, for instance.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that's been huge. And I also, yesterday finished my 63rd round of 28 days of practicing gratitude. So it's different.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And this also stems from my OCD. I turned my sort of a disease, or what you could call as a disease, into my greatest gift, and sort of my superpower of just, instead of doing things that are unnecessary, like, checking something 33 times or whatever, I've turned it into just being so dedicated to my gratitude practice, basically. And so it stemmed all from the book, The Magic, by Rhonda Byrne. And it's a 28-day practice of gratitude towards your health, towards your relationships, career success, and just when I began this practice, I was going through a Great Depression, a breakup, and had very little money in my bank account, no credits in terms of acting. So, started from a low point, and in just even a year of practicing gratitude, my whole life changed and turned around for the better. So
truly, truly amazing. And there's one thing in there that really stuck out to me that I think a lot of listeners today are going to be able to use and benefit from. And I would love for you to dive a little deeper and elaborate on that. But you mentioned you were able to turn one of your biggest problems into a superpower. And I think a lot of times people will look at their problems and it's like, they're more about like, I got to crush this completely so it's never present in my life. When in reality, those issues will always be present. They stem from, from probably bad experience when you're a child. They're just embedded in you through your genes, and those things are not going to completely go away, but there's ways to manage them and there's ways to use them in better ways. So I would love to see, how did you discover that? And how is it that other people can learn how to use their problems and turn them into superpowers?
Very good question. So I've had OCD basically since I can remember. It would take me up to 2 hours to go to bed, as young as 6 or 7 years old. And I didn't know what it was. And OCD wasn't really a well-known thing back in the day. So, I had been in therapy my whole life, and OCD is something that's never really cured. It's something in your brain that just, I would just consider it just, a handicap of sorts. But, I didn't even know that I had transformed this OCD into a superpower until well into the practice. And then I realized, like, wow, I've done now, 30 rounds of it or whatever. And I think this is because I'm OCD, because I'm pretty sure no one has done 63 rounds of this practice. But I've never missed a day. I've never skipped a day.
Amazing.
And so just knowing that alone, I'm like, oh, wait, okay, there is something different about me. There is something different. And this dedication is not towards anything else. I picked gratitude, and there's a reason why this book is called The Magic. It's because it is magic. I mean, when you turn everything into gratitude, you turn everything into gold, I mean, it's just the law of the universe. It's just like attracts like. You are your thoughts. And if your thoughts are that grateful and that positive, then you're bound to attract and manifest things that are incredible into your life.
It's like I tell people all the time, magic isn't just magic, and it doesn't just happen. If you take action, magic is created.
Yes. And it's hard work, to be grateful. I always say that it's not like I wake up and I'm like, yay, my gratitude practice. It's sometimes you're so busy, and I'm extremely busy. So to bring half an hour to an hour into my day for specifically this gratitude practice, there are days where I don't feel like it and I'm feeling lazy and I don't want to, but I as soon as I force myself, as soon as I do it, it's kind of like a workout. I assume you work out obviously a lot. You guys are super fit, and I'm sure there are days where you're like, okay,
oh yeah,
but you
pretty much
push
every
yourself.
day.
Ask any trainer.
Yeah, pretty much every day. This morning. Yeah.
Exactly. But I also don't you feel that sometimes pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone is what brings out the best in you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's how I feel about my gratitude practice. There are days where I'm feeling so low and something tragic happened in my life, and gratitude is the last place I go, or you feeling injured, or you don't want to go to the gym because whatever, you're feeling weak, and then you go and you just know that you're going to feel better afterwards.
Yeah. Well, and I think a big thing too, right, is like the difference between a goal and an expectation, because if you can set yourself up for success, I mean, you've talked a decent amount already about like the shift in the conversations that you were having in your own head, right? Where and this is where I think a ton of people lose sight of what they're actually after, whatever it may be, right? Is they stop having this like, oh, okay, well, your goal maybe with your OCD was like, okay, I just got to get this under control, right? And I have to try to figure out how to make the best of this. what you didn't do is say, okay, well, in 4 months, I'm going to have complete control over this, and I'm never going to have a bad day. And, my life is just going to be roses and rainbows from that day forward, and that's an expectation.
Yeah.
So a lot of
And
people,
very unrealistic too. Sorry,
right.
not to.
No, it's okay. And a lot of people, and that's part of the problem, right? Is that and I have nothing wrong with lofty goals, right? I tell my clients, set risky goals, because then you have something to go after.
That's me all the time.
But don't
Yeah.
trust me, I know about that. But
Big dreams.
don't set the expectation that, okay, by this day I need to be doing X, Y, and Z, because you don't know what's going to happen in your life, right? And we have to be malleable, right? So set goals, but understand that with those goals, you don't necessarily need to be so hard on yourself with expectation that, okay, I'm going to accomplish this or I'm a failure.
No, I think it's literally a daily thing. Like today I choose to do this. I can't personally look too far into the future, because that's where my anxiety stems from. Looking into the past, looking into the future is never good for me. And I've learned that. And it's still hard to do. I mean, of course, we all want to look into the future. We all want to set goals, and I have giant dreams. I've always had big dreams. But the more I stay present to, okay, today I am doing this. That's all I need to think of. And yeah, as far as OCD, I sort of knew, I had no expectation that, and it's same with my acting career. I never had any expectation, because nothing was ever really handed to me. In college, I never got lead roles. I never, so I you see all those kids maybe that went to school with me that always had the leading lady role, or the leading man. And so they came out of college thinking like, oh, well, of course. And whereas I was like, oh, it's going to be tough for me. It's going to be hard. And
you're preaching
I'll
to the
just,
choir.
Oh yeah.
right. And so, and it's the same thing, I think, with my OCD. I never expected that it would help and that it would cure anything. And I still have my own OCD outside of my gratitude practice, but it's so much more manageable. And I would rather have something to do that has a purpose versus things that are unnecessary and that won't serve anything. It's like, anxiety and worry serve zero purpose in your life.
Yeah, no, I always have to tell him, because he's one of those people that's like, oh, okay, we can do this and this and that. And I'm like you, I'm like, okay, day by day, task by task, like this is, because I get really anxious as well, where I'm like, I just, not physically, but mentally, I'm just like, okay, I'm done for the day. Like nothing's going to be, I'm to the point now where, like, no matter what, if I stare at the screen for another 3.5 hours, I might type 5 words. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So,
And that's also knowing yourself, right? We're all different. So
oh yeah,
we're all going to have different ways of looking at things. And I've even said to people, you're definitely, most people aren't like me that are going to do, be so strict with their practice and whatever. But even if you can do 5 minutes a day, or even if you have to skip a week every now and then do that. But gratitude can't be bad for you.
That's
agreed.
right. And look, when you do things little by little, we talk about with our coaching all the time, when we work with our clients, it's those baby steps, right? You mentioned if you could just do a 5 minutes today, right now, maybe you're doing nothing and you're just doing every other week. Well, that's way better than what you were doing before, because you were doing nothing,
Exactly.
and that little extra is just going to only compound throughout the future, because now you're enjoying the results and the goodness you're getting out of it, that next, you're doing it daily now. You're doing it consistently. But I think a lot of, we mention all the time, a lot of people have this notion like, oh, I got to go in all in or nothing.
Got to go ham.
All in or nothing. If not, it doesn't work.
Exactly.
And it's not true. And look, I'm not saying that, hey, there's people who go all in and, hey, it works for them. But you know what? Most of the times you end up crumbling down. So start with what you can control. And if it's only 5 to 10 minutes, then do 5 to 10 minutes, and if it's only once a week for the beginning, then do it once a week, and then it'll add up through the time.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that's huge with gratitude, it's bringing the awareness as to how much we take for granted and how negatively we speak on a daily basis. we don't realize those negative thoughts that come in. And now I'm so hyper aware, just because I've done it for so long, that whenever I'm in a negative space, and mind you, it happens all the time, even after 8 years, because I think our brain is naturally programmed to look at what we don't have.
Well, it wants to protect you, right?
Yep.
Like your brain is there to protect your body. And if it thinks that there's an adversary, right?
Yeah.
Whether it be physical, emotional, environmental, right? You're going to try to protect yourself about that so that you can wake up tomorrow.
Right. Exactly. And just, so it's really about self-awareness and also being awareness of the bigger picture, because there's so many things to be thankful for. And we're so stuck in like, just, okay, what's going wrong? What do I need to fix all the time? Right.
Yeah, no, I mean, living in Miami, right? We live in, and especially for me being on South Beach, like such a bubble, right? Like I hear some of my clients, and their complaints are valid. Everyone can complain about what they want, but I sit them down sometimes. I'm like, you're really stressing out about this right now. Like, you just made $7 million last month. Like, you don't, like you're like, as much as you think like having, to wait in line at the post office is a big deal. Like, you're going to be fine. It might take you 5 minutes, like chill out, maybe listen to a podcast or an audiobook and get on with your day. Like,
well, also too, we live in such a fast era now that everybody wants things instantly, and
Absolutely.
it's just like, you look at your phone, you can literally get the internet instantly. You don't have to do dial up anymore and wait literally 15, 20 minutes for the
dial up internet, Jesus Christ.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, and it's just simply like, you want to order, something, you can have Amazon Prime ship it to you in 2 days. There's even those 1-day deliveries.
I get mad if I have to wait 2 days. I'm like, come
right?
on. Like, I'm not going to have this in 4 hours. Like,
so our patient levels they've shifted completely.
No, patience is a lost virtue. I always think about that, just because I'm pretty impatient myself, but just that's why meditation and practices that force you into just sitting still with yourself, it really helps. And you realize that, there is no timeline. Even, I was single for a really long time, and I just got engaged recently, and
congrats.
Thank you. And I'm 34, and I thought I was going to get married with babies at 25. You know what I mean? And it was the moment I realized, well, if it doesn't happen for me, and it doesn't matter, and it will eventually. Everyone finds some form of love at some point, and it's once you kind of lose that sense of it has to be now, that things start flowing your way, in my experience, at least.
Yeah, well, because you're not focused on the end result, right? And you can really dial into the things that are going to get you to that end result,
and you get to enjoy the process.
Yes.
Everything in life is really about channeling focus, right? And understanding, as you mentioned earlier, right, the triggers that come along with the process that you're going down, because they're unavoidable. No matter what you're doing, there are things that are going to make you upset. There are things that are going to make you frustrated, things that make you happy. So understanding, how all of that affects you really either set you up for success or failure, right? Because you're either going to double down on all the bad stuff that's going on in your day, or you're going to double down on all the good stuff that's going on, like you're doing, right? And that, as Anthony mentioned, compounds over time. Absolutely.
And I think from tragic events or from mistakes, there's always so much to learn. And there's always, from those mistakes, from those challenging times, if you can count all the things that you've learned through them, and if you can really focus on just also the great things that have happened through it, like maybe you got closer with a family member, maybe you got, there's so much goodness that can happen in a challenging time that we forget, or that we don't focus on, because we're so stuck in what we feel is just, the end of the world.
That's exactly right. And I wanted to ask you, obviously seeing through your transformation, and it's truly amazing to hear your experiences. What would you say, or how would you say that after you made that shift of, gratitude and meditation, and, just being more aware and creating this realm around yourself of more positivity, how has this positively affected you with your business and your career? What are the biggest things that stick out to you in that?
It's been huge. I feel it's almost on an energetic level. I started gaining confidence in myself. And I suffer from, still now, from pretty low self-esteem and low self-worth. I mean, even before any job, I get really anxious. I don't sleep. I start thinking like, I don't belong here. What am I doing? But you know, it's given me so much strength and bravery, and I take a lot more risks than I've ever taken. And I put myself out there in a way where there's a lot less fear. And I think before that, I was sort of holding everything so tightly. And as you said, I wanted it so badly that I was strangling the dream versus letting it go and having a lot more detachment towards it, which allowed me to have a lot more freedom to just pursue my dreams in a way that felt just, I don't need this. If I don't get it, I'm good. I'm happy. I'm happy within myself. I'm happy with the things that I do have in my life. And so that attracted a lot more abundance in my life. And I think,
what's funny, I was going to say real quick, is that you'll sometimes see that you might not get that right now. You might not get it all, but sometimes you end up seeing that you get it in another completely different way.
Absolutely.
Later in life.
Yeah. I mean, you have this idea of how you're going to achieve your goals, right? Well, it's definitely going to happen through, you know, booking a job through an audition or whatever. But then something comes, you know, you get an offer from a buddy who's like, hey, you'd be perfect for this part. And you're just like, where did you come from?
Right.
And
blindsided.
Yeah, exactly. But, and just trusting in, you know, God, the universe, whatever you believe in, having faith for me has been huge too. Just, you know, there's not rules, or for me, it's just whatever you believe in is great, as long as you have faith that there's a higher power, you know, that it's not really about you. It's not really how you're gonna, you know, do everything correctly in order to receive something. I do believe in planting the seeds and, like, you know, working extremely hard for what you want, especially if you have big dreams. But at the same time, just having faith that whatever's coming your way is meant to come your way. And there's no real competition here. It's just, you know, I've lost so many jobs to other people, and I've dealt with so much rejection. I mean, being an actor is basically, you get rejected 100 times a year, you know? So you have to learn to accept the fact that, oh, well, this wasn't meant for me, and something better will come along, you know? It's easier said than done, but you know, that's the thing. And once you accept rejection, then you can, again, take a lot more risk. You could just, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think that there is a big correlation between your ability to, you know, understand the importance of rejection, right? And the learning experience that you can get from that, and your ability to take bigger risks in your career or in your personal life, whatever it may be, right? Because too often people, you know, I mean, I see it with my clients all the time. They're like, well, you know, I don't know what that person's going to think if I do this or that. I'm like, why do you give a fuck? You know what I mean? Like, if you want to do it, I've always said, like, I don't think there's anybody at figuring out the problems in my life better than me, you know? So no matter what comes my way, I know I'm more than capable of coming to a solution and figuring out the problem. You know, it might take me a year, but I'll get to it eventually. I might mess up 35 times in that year before I get to the result I want, but you know, I'm heading at least closer to the goal, or finding out what's not really working, depending on what I want.
You mentioned a really cool point. I think my whole life I've cared so much about what other people think. And it was once I started listening to my own advice, because I think a lot of people come to me for advice, and I love it. I love being everyone's therapist, and I enjoy being kind of on the side life coach. But it was once I started having the right life coach, actually, that I started being able to really answer my own questions, and being able to really tune in. It's like, what is right for me, though? Not according to societal beliefs and all of that, but what feels good to me. It doesn't have to be right. It's just, you know, what is in alignment, and forget about everyone else. And I've always kind of oh, the grass is greener everywhere else. And everyone has it so much better than me, like, oh, you see everyone just so happy. And then you look at your life, or same with Instagram, right? Everyone is having the best time. Everyone's life is awesome. And then I look at my Instagram, I'm like, oh, people probably think that about me because I'm showing the highlight reel of Maya's life, And so that too, just being able to really stay in your lane, staying focused on your life. And it doesn't have to be, what everyone thinks it should be.
So spot on. So spot on. And I think we definitely need more of that. We definitely need more of that. And I think a lot of people, and obviously, we've been victims of it, I'm sure, many times, but a lot of people just compare way too much. And we'll sit there and scroll through that social media feed and just sit there and compare their life with, somebody else's life, and just really get hard on themselves because of that. And it's just, people don't realize exactly that. Yeah, you might be seeing a certain thing, but behind closed doors, you don't even know what they're really going through. You don't even know their situations. You don't know their life experiences. And I think also too, that's what makes people unique. Everybody has their different life experiences and situations, so we can all come together collectively and talk about it, learn from each other, apply things. So it's like I've said many, many times before, stop comparing your chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 20 something.
Exactly.
Don't do that, guys. Understand that your starting point is your starting point. That person had their starting point at some point in their life, and they had to go through certain things to get to where they're at. And you can do the same thing too. You got to just be able to trust and have faith in yourself, and then take action.
100%. And I think never, ever forget that person and I can put it on me. I've posted things online about, winning a festival, or this movie's coming out, that movie's coming out. But meanwhile, at the same time, I'm maybe sobbing about something else, and so anxious about something that's going on in my life, but yet I'm posting something where I'm like, smiling and celebrating. And so it's just always remembering that social media and what we project out onto the world, I'm not even going to put it on social media, but we can walk out the door and put on a mask and seem great, but internally we're not right. And so that's a good thing to remind ourselves, because I know I look at these girls that seem, or guys that seem to have it all, and but you can never really truly know what's going on internally in someone's mind and someone's body.
For individuals that are dealing with these kind of things, what would you recommend, or what would you give as some of the go-to tips that they can start doing today to start bettering themselves in some of these avenues that we just talked about?
Well, once again, I'm a huge advocate in, number one, sitting with yourself, and also just, if you want to start a gratitude practice, it doesn't have to be an everyday thing, but just, even if you wake up in the morning and just being grateful to be alive, because it starts there, right? We're all just blessed to have another day on this beautiful planet Earth. And it sounds so just simple, but it is that simple. We're waking up, we're alive. Okay. Do we have someone that loves us? Do we love something or someone? And it starts there. And I think, just for me, it's all about being of service. If I can be of service and make someone smile once a day, then my life is so much better for it. It's when we focus so much also on ourselves that we get stuck in just, this tiny little bubble of what can I do to be my best self and better myself. But there are so many people that are struggling. So can you go outside of yourself and just find that one person that you can help? And it'll make you, essentially it's a selfish deed, because you will feel better at the end of the day. And you guys both help people on a daily basis. So, I'm sure it makes you feel good in some way. And that's why probably you're living a balanced life. Yeah.
Kind of on that point, I looked at your Instagram before we hopped on here, and I saw that, you were doing some work in Skid Row, and I kind of want to take a little left turn and dive into some of that, because, I want to hear more about what exactly you are, if you're currently doing it or were doing it, like what exactly are you up to, and how have the people in that area like really been affected? So it's been kind of like a tumultuous area, right, for so long as a part of our life. So
Absolutely. I mean, I've ever since I can remember, done a lot of volunteer work, just thanks to my family that's always been very active in that way. And I came to California and sort of, just went to Skid Row and saw just how devastating it was just to see these people that really have nothing. And, you can so easily lose hope in the system because truly it's just something that is growing and growing. There are more and more homeless people out there. And I found this incredible place called the Midnight Mission, which is actually a rehab center. So it's people that want to get better. And I think that's key because, as you can't get better unless it comes from within. That's and exactly it comes right. From you. And so, these people want to get help. And so I started with doing art with a mission, started, being creative with them. And then it grew into just in a bigger way of, I started teaching yoga there, and it started becoming my second home. And I started knowing these people by name and just really considering them family. And I know for a fact that just any one of us can end up having nothing. We always think well, this would never happen to me because, I work so hard and everything. But truth is, anyone can fall from high. And I've seen it in many cases. And it's just, right. It's not above us or beneath us rather. And so, yeah, it's helped me so much in my own personal life, just knowing number one, how good I have it, but also that, I've seen so many success stories of people going from absolutely nothing to then finding a job and reconnecting with their family or whatever it might be. But I think, there is so much to be done, and it starts small. Once again, I think there's no big giant solution. Otherwise we would have already done it. So whatever small deed you can do in order to help your neighbor, that's all it takes.
What are some of the biggest problems that you see facing the homeless community? Because as you mentioned, right, it is kind of exploding over the past decade, really, right? California, New York, there's a ton. Down here, there's more. And I know down here, it's because there's a lot of like really shitty drug rehabilitation centers, right? That just kind of mask themselves to get government checks and then, do nothing to really help someone. So I know that that's a big problem here in Miami, but, in California, at Skid Row and the other areas that you're working at, what do you really see are like some of the biggest issues that lead people into homelessness and then keep them in homelessness?
It's so funny. I said I just came back from a shoot in Vegas. I played a DEA agent, and I
Badass.
Just now really, I just right now saw the connection in just how young people start into addiction, whether it's a vicious circle. Your family is in a situation where they're either selling drugs or doing drugs. And, for me, it always just stems from education. If you have it out there from a young age and are able to have the luxury of going to school or putting your kids into school, like that's where it all starts. But it's just the access to drugs is so easy. It's so incredibly easy. And you would think it would be tough if you have no money and whatnot, but just
is it like pills, meth? Right
now fentanyl is the big thing. So
someone in my high school just passed away like maybe a month or two ago from like laced cocaine, laced with fentanyl. It's terrible.
It's awful. And, I think the work of the DAs is huge, and people, oftentimes, pardon my French, but they shit on their work because they just think, well, they're not doing anything because there's no real big change. But the thing is, once again, it's not just a one fix thing, and
you can't just arrest a couple of people and then there you go.
No, it's going to keep going until, it's almost, people are just trying to manage even so that there isn't as much violence in the drug world. And so that it is something that is more contained, because, is it something that will ever disappear? People will always do coke. If it's not coke, it'll
we're
be
in Miami.
else.
Miami was built on cocaine.
Exactly.
We wouldn't have all the infrastructure we had if it weren't for cocaine.
No, for sure. I mean, there's so, billions of dollars involved in drug trafficking. So it's
Yeah.
just, how do you manage around it? And it affects people that are on Skid Row. It affects families that are going to be separated. Like, we don't see kind of the line through it. All those people that traffic drugs, they're just like you and I mean, they're not, but
Yeah.
they're just human beings trying to make a living. But the thing is, there's greed, and there's,
Right. And
a
a
lot
lot of it
more.
stems from, not having any income sources, right? Like
Exactly.
a lot of drug use comes from people being in a poor economic situation where they can't feed for their family. So they have to kind of
Absolutely.
numb the pain, with drugs and alcohol.
Absolutely. And honestly, they don't see the through line of where it's going. I don't believe that people, and I've met so many, drug traffickers on Skid Row or rehabilitated into
How are
something
those
else.
experiences?
I was about to say.
Amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's incredible just how human everyone is. I often tell this story of, when I was doing art with a mission, we were doing cards for Mother's Day. And there was this one guy, with a teardrop, ex-gang member, maybe even still affiliated with the gang, I don't know. And he was writing this beautiful Mother's Day card and writing a little poem with a heart. And it was just so sweet and tender. And it's just, we have this image in our heads, probably because of, Hollywood and the way they portray people
Right.
in movies. But these people are, that's what I mean. They're just like you and I, they have a mom, they have a dad, some of them don't, but it's just, it's not all just black or white, people
So
on Skid Row. Yeah. There's some wonderful people
yeah,
on
it's easy
there.
to put people in boxes, right?
Big time.
Exactly.
Big time. So based on your experience and being there constantly and seeing and being a part of trying to help this and create a better situation, in your honest opinion, do you see things getting worse, or do you see things currently getting better?
And it's interesting because I'm thinking of just how positive I am and how much faith I've got. But sometimes I do think things need to get really, really bad and worse in order to make a big change. And realistically, my answer is I'm seeing it get worse.
Mm-hmm.
Just as an observant, it is getting worse. But I do have hope and faith that at some point there will be a shift in consciousness. But it starts with you. It starts with me. It starts with everyone wanting to make a difference and doing those little, whatever we can do. It's not, okay, now I'm going to put my cape on and save the world. It's just, what can you do in order to help your community? And can you have a conversation with these people? Can you be open-minded enough to, when you see a homeless person, look at them in the eyes and acknowledge them versus, ignoring them and just pretending that it's not there,
Yeah, it really blows my mind how we can have such a problem here in America, and it rarely gets discussed nationally, like on a big scale, right? Like maybe in California or down here, they might say, "Oh, there's an issue with homelessness," but there's never really, and like no politicians are running on like, okay, we're actually going to solve homelessness. Like you don't hear that from them, right? Okay, we're
No.
going to take
Yeah.
but okay, we're going to bail out these corporations because they need that. It's like you can just drum up $1.5 trillion,
Yeah.
to take care of the big banks or the auto industry, but people are literally living on the fucking street in LA, and you
Yeah.
don't
I
want to do
mean,
in like massive, basically towns of tents underneath.
right.
It's like, and you don't want to do anything about it.
And I
Nothing at all.
think,
Like the
yeah,
bubonic plague is coming back
Yep.
in some of these areas, like cholera and stuff. And you don't want
I
to.
heard about that.
You don't want to do anything. You don't even want to. You just want to sweep it under the rug.
And also
well,
too,
it's,
you're
yeah,
seeing a lot of these. You're seeing a lot of some of these places giving them free needles. Free needles to keep shooting up drugs and all that stuff. That way they're saying so they prevent from people sharing the needles. But it's like, honestly, how does that help too? How does that help the problem?
no, we need about, thousands of more rehab centers. And again, I really think it starts with our education system, and it
I
starts with
agree.
every kid deserves an education. And, you know, because the problem will keep resurfacing. It'll keep going until we make a shift in that, and until every child gets the education they deserve.
Yeah, I mean, I've even seen it. You know, like I have a ton of student loan debt for my undergrad and my graduate degree, right? And luckily, I'm in a place where I can pay it off. You know, and I do have, because I own my own business and I am doing well, like a little bit of job security, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I can only imagine those people that take out, you know, $50,000, $100,000 to, you know, be an art major, and then they never even work in the art. You know, and it's absurd to
No.
me. And then they're still saddled with $100,000 in debt, and it's the only thing that you can't file for bankruptcy because it's backed by the U.S. government.
Right.
Well, I think that's why you're
No.
seeing
Yeah.
more. You're seeing more and more, young individuals. They're not even going. They're deciding not to go to school
I
anymore.
mean, I told my sister not to,
Yeah.
and she went to. She goes to the same college I went to.
And people are
You know?
realizing too, like, hey, look, I can go take certain courses. I can go learn a specialized, get a specialized information to learn a certain niche, and I can make way more than I would have done with my career and not get myself in debt. You know, so you're seeing shifts happening. You know, with a lot of the schooling system, and
Mm-hmm.
even, you know, parents even not even wanting to put their kids in school anymore because, you know, it is a sacrifice. You know, and then,
Yeah.
you know, you graduate, sometimes you don't even get a job, you know,
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
and it's just like,
I
or you don't
really
even work your job.
Yeah,
You know?
I really think that we're starting to realize this whole everyone needs to go to college thing didn't really work out the way that we thought it, because we're that generation, right?
Yeah.
We're the generation
Right.
of, you know, you got to go get your 4-year degree, and you electricians are just dumb people. It's like, no, my uncle's an electrician, one of the smartest guys I've ever, you know what I mean? Like, I can't
Exactly.
wire my own house if something goes wrong. Like, you know, he can.
Exactly. And I think America also, I'm from Switzerland, Geneva, but there's so much, well, what do you do? Like, where have you been to college? Like and in Switzerland, where I come from, it's like, so what do you do? And people look at you like, I'm a plumber. Like, it's not about what you do. It's what kind of person are you? You know,
Yeah.
what
Well, it's
brings you
easy to put
joy?
the
We
label on
forget.
someone, right?
Exactly. And it's like, oh, well, because you're this successful, that must mean that you are that much happier. And it's like, well, no, you know, what everyone has a different set goal in their lives. And, you know, that plumber or teacher or whatever it is maybe way happier than that billionaire that's just worried about his 2 millions that he just lost in whatever,
Right.
you know,
Which both are fine, you know, like we had this conversation
absolutely.
even between the two of us the
Yeah.
other day. Cause he's an extremely high achiever and, you know, very goal oriented. And
Same.
I am to a certain degree, but I'm also one of those people that can kind of just like go with the flow. And like, I don't, you know, if I reach 80% of my already lofty 100% goal, like, okay, then I feel pretty good about it. I don't need, you know, $15 million to feel happy. I just want to like be in a quiet area with like a community that understands what my values are, and, you know, be able to do the things that I want to do without the stress of like being in debt and, you know, having to worry about where my money's going to come from. Like, as long as I can do that, I'm good. But I totally get where he's coming from too, right? Like, I don't have
I'm
any
more
kids.
like
You know, he's
yeah.
got a little girl, you know, so I understand his perspective is a lot different than mine on what he has to accomplish, you know, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, you know, but too often,
No.
you know, if we were having this conversation and we weren't who we were, I would be thinking in my head, well, fuck, now I gotta, you know, be like this, you know, ultra entrepreneur. And it's like, I don't have to do
Just
that.
be happy. That's what I told me. Just be happy. Find happiness. And if you catch yourself, look, if you're an individual who's working a certain job and you're not happy because, hey, you're not making the money you want to make, or you're just, you know, tired of the some of the crap you're going, then switch. You have the opportunity to switch. You're not tied down to that job. You're complaining about certain things. Go do something about it.
Yeah.
You know, and
Make
then at
that
the same
change.
time,
Yeah.
and if you see that, oh my God, yeah, I'm making all this money, but you're miserable, you know, then change it. Maybe you take a little bit less and you change your lifestyle. You know, you see where you would feel comfortable having a certain things in your life, and you're like, okay, well, I know I need to make this much. I don't need to make this much. This is what makes me happy. Then change that. You know, so whatever spectrum you're on, it's just find what makes you happy.
100%. To some people, having big dreams would just be too overwhelming, and for me, it's just no. I want to keep those big goals and big dreams for the rest of my life. Like, that's never going to change. But in order to be happy, it's just really looking internally as to what is right to you, you know, and not anyone else.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I catch myself in conversation with my friends, and I'm like, oh, like he's an electrician, or oh, he is like the maitre d at the restaurant I like to go to, and they're like, oh, okay, and I just look at them, I'm like, what is that? Is that okay with you? Or is it okay that like one of my best friends is in like this fucking banker at JP Morgan, like. It's fine. It's fine if he wants to be like a club promoter. Like I don't care. It's his life. If he's happy doing that, then by all means.
That is also one of my greatest advice to anyone listening. Find friends from all walks of life.
Oh,
I love that I have a ton of friends in YPO, which is Young Presidents Organization, that own big giant companies and that are doing extremely well. And then I love my best friend from home in Switzerland since we're 5 years old. She's, kindergarten teacher. And, she's just, it's just finding those people from all walks of life that you're able to converse with and understand and just listen. And you just learn so much from just what makes other people happy and that it doesn't have to be all the same.
Yeah. Amen to that. And that's why I always say that the word success means so many different things to different people.
Yes.
It's success for you can mean something, success for me can mean something, success for Josh can mean something, and it's just, what's going to make you happy in that success. And if you can make that happen, then you're good. You're going to be happy, and there might be somebody else who's has all these things that people might say, oh, well, look, he's successful. And, that maybe deep down inside, they don't feel successful because they never really achieved what they really wanted to do.
Exactly. And that's the thing, being an actor, people would look at me like, good luck to her, just, they were like, oh, she'll be back, and I came to America sort of thinking like, oh, I went with a golf scholarship because I played golf. And
oh yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a little hidden gem in there.
Okay.
So I did that. And then, I've always been in love with theater, always was in love with the craft, but I had no idea how I was going to make it. But it also helped me that people thought like, oh, good luck to her, okay, you say I can't do something.
Like,
all right.
Yeah, little golfer girl. Okay, good luck. Yeah, good luck. Yeah.
You're like, I'm about to swing something else your way. Watch.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You can always surprise people. Don't let anyone put you in a box either. We can put ourselves in a box, but it's also so easy for people in your surroundings to just think like, well, you should just stay in your little lane and corner. And it's just like, no, break free. You can do anything at all,
Yeah, no, it's always interesting. And I've mentioned this on the podcast before. Anthony and I joke around about it all the time. Like anytime I see someone out at a restaurant, they're like, oh, you're not in gym clothes. I'm like, no, I'm a fucking person. Like I don't just wear shorts to like a restaurant. I'm going to go spend $500 at. Like, no, I'm not going to be like in a fucking sweatband, going to the club. Like
the other one, Josh, you eat dessert?
Oh yeah.
You eat dessert?
That's a big,
no.
Oh, you're going to order dessert? Like, fucking right I am. Like I'm gonna order two now that you said it. I'm gonna
cake with ice cream.
I'm gonna get the dessert sampler, all right, for myself.
Yes, it's so true.
It's crazy, so true. How much people want to put us in these boxes, right?
Stereotype.
Or
you have these certain belief systems, and so that means that nothing about the other side. It's like, well, actually, the people who I train are much different in their viewpoints than I come from a very rural town in upstate New York, like farmland everywhere. People are very, homebody. And when I came down here, it's all my clients are like extremely transient, and like know everyone in there. I'm like, okay, I'm good with like 4 people in my life. I don't need, I need to have a million best friends. But it goes back to your point of like understanding people from all walks of life, because I really do feel like one of the best things that's happened about me joining the health and fitness industry has been that I've been able to be exposed to so many different people with so many different stories of success and failure, and I do take those stories to heart and try to learn from them as I'm listening to my clients speak.
And I think that's so beautiful. And I think it all comes down to empathy. And for me, our job as actors is empathy. You're literally putting yourself in other people's shoes. And that's why I love that I've played a lot of villains, and you know,
I always hear the best villains in movies and shows are actually the nicest people you'll ever meet.
Oh, well, that's sweet. Well, I don't know. But yeah, you know, I was never typecast as one specific thing. And I love that about my career. I look at, you know, the 40 odd projects that I've done and TV shows, and I have such a variety of people that I've gotten to step into. And I think, you know, I really promote just even improv to people, because there's such benefit to being free in knowing that you don't have to just be this one person. You can, you know, dive into other people's walks of lives and really just start understanding that there's such a bigger world out there, you know, than your own.
Yeah, life is extremely nuanced, right? Like even the viewpoints that you may have when you were 25 are going to probably be very different than you were when you're 35 or 55 or 75, right? And same thing with your friends, and same thing with your family. And you know, again, it all goes down to being like accepting and being malleable.
Yeah. And as long as you grow as an individual, you know, you stick to your morals, the morals you've set for yourself, you know, you make decisions based off those morals, not off emotion, and you lead your life, you know, with your own control. I think that's when you start seeing, you know, that direction for yourself, that positive direction that you want to head to, and you can start creating success for yourself.
Absolutely. And not to get political, but I was even just thinking just how many people have cut off friends and even family members for different beliefs. And I think that the healing really comes from just, and the growth, and it just comes from listening to others. And there's such a lack of that. It's like, unfollow me if you believe the same thing that I believe in.
And it doesn't matter what side you're on. I'm both extremes.
No.
You're seeing it.
Both
absolutely sides. Absolutely. It's just, to me, there's a lack of understanding and a lack of listening. We all just want everyone to have our own point of view, our own opinion, because it's the right way and the only way. And the thing is, there's a divide in this country for that specific reason, because everyone refuses to just be able to listen.
Right.
And you know, again, it comes down to just having a little more empathy and a little bit more just understanding that, you know, nothing will change until we all start listening more and stop thinking that everyone has to have the same point of view.
Yeah, no, I mean, we have 2 ears and one mouth for a reason, right?
That's right.
We're almost at an hour, by the way. So, you know,
wow, went fast.
yeah, I know, time flies. I want to thank you one more time, Maya, for, you know, being our guest on the show and, you know, sharing your insight and sharing your story with everyone. It's been truly amazing to get to know you a lot better.
Thank you.
Where can people find you on social media? Best way to reach you?
First of all, thank you so much for having me on board. I'm not even sure where you guys found me, but I'm so thankful. You guys are awesome, and I love what you're doing. And people can find me at Maya, M-A-Y-A Stojan on Instagram, and that's pretty much it. That's where I'm most active, and yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
So I'm gonna run you through some quick questions like we always do our finishers.
Oh,
there we go.
Okay.
So first one, what has been your favorite project that you have worked on in the movie and show industry?
Wow, tough question. You know, I would say being a part of the Marvel world has been extraordinary, just because, you know, I grew up kind of with comic books, and just knowing that for the rest of my life I'll be a Marvel character. Just it feels, again, just like I'm stronger than I think, I'm bigger than I think, I can do this.
Absolutely love that. Marvel being one of my
oh, he's such a fanboy.
Love it.
Oh,
he's such a fanboy.
Love it. Second question, what is the newest project you have going on, if you can share?
So as I said, I just finished shooting a project called American Sicario, which is all about the drug world, and it's actually the one and only American Sicario. And for those that don't know,
Wow.
Sicario means hitman, and
Epic.
it's based on a true story. You can Google La Barbie. He's this guy that was born in Laredo, Texas, and started dealing and trafficking drugs from Mexico over the border, and became this huge drug lord. And now he's in jail for the rest of his life. He's been sentenced, I think, for 49 years, but he's already 40 or something. So yeah, it's an incredible story, and it really sheds a light on what's going on in the drug world, and it's really cool. And I've had a bunch of projects come out, as I said, this year: a Netflix project, a Showtime project,
all over the place. Where's this new one going to air at?
This American Sicario already has distribution, so we're fingers crossed for Netflix. It's most likely Netflix, but it could be a bunch of different avenues.
Awesome. You have to let us know. We'll definitely tune in.
Yes,
we'll be your newest fans.
Yep.
Oh,
and you can test us. We'll make sure to watch it.
Right back at you. I'll be watching, listening your podcast.
Really appreciate that. So last two questions. What was the craziest and wildest experience you ever had on set?
Craziest and wildest experience I've had on set. I don't even know. I've had so many incredible experiences, but there's one experience that comes to mind. So I'll just talk about that. It happened in college, and maybe this will help people. But I was in sophomore year, and I was playing Helen of Troy, and it was in front of a small audience. It was probably 100 people, but it felt like a lot more. And in the middle of my speech, I completely forgot my line. And it felt like the end of the world. And talking about mistakes that turn into blessings, ever since that moment, I am so huge in just working my lines to the point where they become second nature. And it was the greatest gift, that moment that felt so embarrassing. And even when I think about it now, I just cringe, and I'm like, how embarrassing was that moment, just of like blacking out. And no wonder I never got a lead role in college after that. But it was just, the most tragic thing. And I had so much shame around it, but it ended up being the greatest blessing. So I know that's not really a wild or crazy story, but to me, it felt wild and crazy and awful, but it turned out
off the bat, I'll tell you that you sharing that is going to let people know why failure is such a tremendous way of getting feedback, and how to accept your failures, and seeing the beauty that can come out of your failures. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Good.
Last and final question. What's the biggest piece of advice you can leave off to all our listeners today?
Patience pays. Let the hand of God work for you. Oof. I think that for me is sort of a mantra that I've been using for a while. And, we talked about patience, but I think we want everything now. And if 2020 has taught me or reinforced anything, it's just that patience is key. Yes, plant the seeds, do what you can, but things will always eventually happen in your life. And so if you just go with that and just know that you can let God or the universe, whatever you believe in, just place the right things in front of you, the right opportunities, then you're golden.
Guys, you heard it. Patience pays, and let the hands of God work it for you. Such a beautiful way to end this, and we really appreciate having you on here.
Yeah,
thank you so much. Thank you both. I really appreciate you guys, and best of luck in your podcast and your future. I'm really excited.
Thank you so much. Until next time, guys.